My childhood best friend's boyfriend assaulted me 10 years ago. I stayed silent but revealed it when they got married, and now everyone blames me. I kept quiet for 10 years, but I told them the truth when they were married. Now everyone blames me for speaking up. Please bear with me as I provide a brief backstory. Growing up, I, F27, had a childhood friend named Angie, F27, who was as close as a genuine sister. We spent entire weekends at each other's homes, celebrating family occasions together. When my parents divorced, I lived with her from the age of 6 until 18. I learned to speak some Russian because she is Russian, and she learnt some Spanish. Needless to say, her older brother and younger sister felt like family to me. During our teenage years, Angie had two male best pals. She began seeing one of them, and the other, Nico, now 29, who was also Russian, is the person I began dating when I was 17. Growing up, I struggled with a cardiac ailment. I won't bore you with the details, but I needed to take a number of medications. Starting at the age of 16, I became healthier and no longer needed to take them on a daily basis, except when my heart rate became irregular. However, when this occurred, it became exceedingly painful. My heart would cramp and I would begin to hyperventilate. All of my pals, including Nico, were aware of this, and they also understood that combining my medications with alcohol would cause me to black out. As a result, I didn't smoke or drink much while growing up. I was concerned about my health and only drank at home or in a safe environment. Here, the legal drinking age is 16, and I rarely drank anything other than wine or beer. I had sex for the first time with Nico when I was 17. 2 weeks later, while my parents were at a retreat, he came over for a date night. I had one glass of wine, but then I began experiencing health problems, which led to me taking my medication and going asleep. The next morning, I felt a little sore, but I didn't give it much thought. 2 weeks later, I informed Nico that my menstruation was late. He panicked and confessed to having sex with me while I was unconscious. We'd done it before, so he didn't think much about it. He didn't have a condom, but since I was on the pill, he assumed it was fine. He also stated that he did not come into me, but rather in a tissue. I felt violated and disgusted by myself. I didn't know how to convey it, so I merely told Angie. I was a complete wreck for a few years and couldn't have sex until 2 years later. I didn't recall any of it, but I was too embarrassed to tell my mother or anyone else. I didn't consider it rape at the time because I was too young to grasp what had happened and how I'd been assaulted. Angie assured me that everything was fine and that if I felt horrible about it, I should end our relationship. But because we were in a relationship and had sex before, I felt conflicted. I eventually broke up with him the next day. Nico and Angie were close and spent a lot of time together, so he must have cried to her about his broken heart. After a few months, I felt compelled to see him whenever I visited her. I explained that I couldn't see him, but she didn't comprehend. Eventually, the contact ended and we haven't texted or seen each other in years. I continue to follow her and her family on social media. I noticed that her brother was expecting his first child. Because I was incredibly close to her family, I replied on the Instagram post to offer my happiness. He contacted me thereafter. I had missed his wedding, but he wanted to know whether I would be interested in attending the baby shower, as we hadn't spoken in years and were formerly very close. He told me I was like his third little sister. I asked Nico if he would be attending, as Angie and he had been dating for 9 years, and he replied sure. I didn't say much, but I offered to send him a modest gift if he could give me his current address. I mentioned that I would not be attending. He kept nagging me about what occurred all those years ago and why I'm no longer in their lives. Angie told her family that I couldn't see her since she was seeing my ex, but her brother suspected more. This is when I believed I could be honest. I told him the truth about what occurred back then. While I didn't realize it at 17, I now know it was rape, and I referred to it as such. I didn't hear back from him, but Angie contacted me a few days later, furious. Nico had intended to propose at the baby shower, but Angie's brother is now opposed after learning why I stopped communicating. She informed me she loves Nico and intends to stay with him, but her brother said she is no longer a part of his life. He does not want his baby girl to be raised by a rapist's family. Since then, I've received messages from former high school acquaintances telling me that I should have ignored it and not told anyone. They claim that because I didn't speak up back then, I've lost my right to do so now, and that I'm a terrible person for causing problems. Someone's life has been damaged because of something he did as a child 10 years ago. Is it really my fault for speaking up? Comments where OP has replied. The OP responds to comments regarding her right to speak up, stating that she now realizes it was rape. But we grew up in a little town of about 5,000 people, and I'm not sure what would have happened if I had spoken up. He was 19 at the time, 2 years older, And everyone knows everything about everyone else. It would have had a significant influence back then, just as it does today. They all still reside there, and word has spread. That is why so many of our former classmates, the majority of whom still reside in the area, are contacting us. They've left me furious texts. They've known Nico their entire lives and are sticking by him. When I was 20, I moved out, and my mother departed soon after. We didn't keep in touch with most folks. It still aches my heart to receive such a violent response from people who were my entire childhood. Thank you for all of your well wishes, I sincerely appreciate it. OP, Nico ruined his own life, not mine. I recognize that he is responsible for what transpired. The pushback I'm getting is because he appears to be a different guy now, and Angie believes that what he did as a youngster shouldn't ruin his life. Angie also says it has nothing to do with her brother's daughter. I'm not sure if Nico will ever act out or do anything, but it doesn't change what happened to me. Thank you for confirming this. I can't stop feeling awful about the repercussions. While I do not want to see Nico or Angie, I am at peace with what happened to me back then. Commenter, but why are they assaulting you rather than the brother? You are not the one who objects to the marriage. To be honest, it all feels like misogyny and victim blaming. OP, I suppose since he is family and I'm the outsider who has ruined their family. I've received numerous messages from people who previously did not have my phone number. I'm blocking as many as I can, but it's difficult not to allow these remarks get to you. Commenter, NTA. They got together so quickly after the two of you split up. I can't help but think if your friend was encouraging you to abandon your relationship with Nico because she had always wanted to be with him. OP, I really don't believe that. They've known one another for years, and she broke up with her boyfriend 2 weeks before I ended my relationship with Nico. It is a small village of approximately 5,000 people. Even with pupils our age from adjacent villages, our school had just 500 students. The possibilities were extremely limited. Update, September 15, 2024. First and foremost, I'm grateful to everyone who took the time to read my tale and leave comments. I read over every comment and attempted to respond to as many as possible. It offered me a glimmer of hope for compassion toward rape victims, as well as the confidence to resist the hostility I faced. Mental update. Reading all of the letters justifying my decision to speak up made me realize how insecure I was about what I was permitted to do and how much I was trying to make things right for people other than myself. This notably applied to Nico and Angie. All of you are correct. If Nico had truly changed, he would have apologized, reached out, or attempted to make amends in some way, either when word reached him from his brother-in-law or earlier in his life. Angie, my former best friend, should have felt sympathy if she respected me as a person or the time we spent together. Her reactions taught me not to hesitate in my actions. I began going to therapy at the age of 21 and felt I had moved on from the rape as much as possible, but I realized how humiliated I am almost 10 years later for an act that was completely out of my control. I was embarrassed to speak up back then, and I was frightened that the people around me might react differently. I still felt guilty about speaking up today, so I've been trying to accept what happened to me and not apologize for other people's actions, especially when they don't even respect me. Since then, I preserved all unwanted WhatsApp messages for future reference. Angie's mother contacted me the next day, crying. I shouldn't have answered the phone, but during our 10-year friendship I considered her an aunt, almost a second mother. She used to joke that as her children ran around the house, I would always take the time to drink tea and converse with her, giving her more love and attention than her actual children. While she apologized for what had happened and what I had been through as a youngster, she couldn't believe I would ruin Angie's happiness over something like that. Angie's brother's refusal to accept Nico as a member of the family, and Angie's support for Nico, has divided their family, and she is distraught. She has grown to adore Nico as if he were a family member, and she regards him as nothing more than a nice young guy who she hopes will bring her daughter happiness. It wasn't aggressive or unpleasant language, just a heartbroken mother who claimed to understand my pain while still seeing flaws in me. Angie's mother tried to persuade me to apologize or retract what I said, but I refused since I don't see any blame in myself. Despite everything that has transpired, I feel Nico has not changed and is simply hiding it better. He sees how people are sticking by him and supporting his actions, so he sees no reason to change, which I didn't want to encourage. Angie's mother never used the word rape. I tried to correct her every time she mentioned it, naming it so she could better comprehend, but she only started crying harder. It didn't make sense for us to keep chatting. Angie's mother used to communicate with my mother, and after our chat, she reached out to her. I was terrified my mother would find out because she comes from a very conservative background. We had a long conversation, and while I haven't met her in person yet, She apologized for not being there for me and not making me feel like I could communicate to her. I attempted to calm her down as much as I could, but when she inquired if my current boyfriend knew I was used like that, I became enraged. She was afraid my partner would abandon me if he found out, meaning that what had transpired made me less valuable or appealing. I hung up after she urged me to keep it a secret from our family both abroad and in our country. She was acting just as I had feared she would, as if it were something shameful. It was especially difficult because I am working hard to overcome my feelings of shame. She has now apologized, but it is evident that her attitude toward me has altered. I'm not sure how to handle it yet, but it's something to be concerned about in the coming weeks. As some of you suggested, I wrote Angie's brother, Sven, again to apologize for the mess, but I'm glad it's out in the open. I also told him how proud I was that he was defending his family. I asked if his old email address still worked since I wanted to send him a gift card. He did not react, but I received a message from his wife 2 days ago. She thanked me for coming out and notifying them about Nico. Apparently, there were a couple times that made her uncomfortable. Some jokes Nico told, and in retrospect, she understands why. Sven allegedly notified her as soon as he received my initial SMS, and they have both since seen Angie but not Nico. She refuses to remain in the same room or house with him, as does their unborn daughter. Sven and Angie's mother has visited them several times, pleading with them to forgive Nico, and Sven has given in little. Angie and Nico will marry, and Sven will attend, but not his wife. Nico is welcome in the family, but is not permitted to communicate with Sven's wife or daughter. These restrictions do not apply to Angie. Sven has been suffering while attempting to assuage his mother's concerns, and he is unable to take a position and cut them out totally. This is the compromise they made without his wife's approval, and she told me she is doing everything she can to cut them out of their lives indefinitely. She wants to be closer to her family as well, and she believes this is the perfect opportunity, but she is unsure if she can follow through. His wife apologized profusely for all of the problems I've had, and it's been a difficult situation for them. Sven understands that it is not my fault, but he prefers not to communicate. It's difficult for him to speak with or see my name because, while he knows I'm not the guilty party, I was the bearer of terrible news, and he sees me as the beginning of all this drama. She told me several times that neither she nor Sven think I'm the evil guy, they're just fatigued from everything, and it's been incredibly difficult on them. That is all that has transpired thus far. I'm frustrated with how everything came to be. Nico appears to be going about his business without regard for the consequences. I didn't want him to suffer, but I guess part of me wanted an apology for all the pain I had endured. Now I have to deal with my mother's changed, ashamed opinion of me. Even though I'm relieved that it's all over, it's difficult for me to stick to my decisions. Throughout this journey, my spouse and best friend have both provided a shoulder to cry on. My best friend has been outraged for me, and I'm delighted to have both of them by my side. Right now, I'm simply emotionally spent, but I'm sure it will improve after a few weeks. Now to the next story, story 2. My wife is delusional, believing she is pregnant with twins despite negative tests. She also thinks I am going to abandon her and our children. This is all over the place. I really need help. My wife and I, M42, have been married for 2 years together for 15. All this time we had either not decided to have kids or had problems getting pregnant. After some medical testing we found out that it was near impossible to get pregnant due to some medical issues with her. We were thinking of adopting when one day she came home and told me she was expecting. Of course I was super happy. A week later we had an appointment at the gyno and she had some blood drawn. The test came back negative and of course I was devastated, but she wasn't. She claimed that she was pregnant and that the doctor was wrong. We took some more store-bought ones and they all came back negative. My wife is in complete denial. Now she claims we are having twins. She is buying them clothes and decorations and is pressuring me to start with the nursery. I am at a loss and don't know what to do. My inaction is making her believe that I want to leave them and that I am going to doom my wife into the life of a single mom. What the F is even happening? I love her but I don't know what to do. Edit, forgot to add. I have tried talking her into therapy but she accuses me of gaslighting her. Little update, edit. Thank you guys, you really helped me out. Yesterday was a bad day and you helped me get clarity. I've had a chat with our doctor who will now be handling this with us. I would like to thank most of you with useful advice and hopefully I will be able to update good news someday. But a fuck you to those that said I should divorce her because she is crazy, and an extra fuck you to the guy that used this post to push his anti-abortion agenda. Comments deleted. Call the doctor who did the pregnancy tests and leave a message with the emergency number. They will be able to tell you who to contact. She's obviously had some sort of mental break. Just an FYI, at 19 weeks you would have had ultrasound pictures and gender determination, and she would have had several OBGYN visits. Is she doing practical things like taking prenatal vitamins and reading books, or is it all delusional and talk? Just wondering how far she is taking this scenario. Oh, OP, I know. Also, she isn't showing at all. She is thin as always. Yes, she says that she can't lift heavy things, says she has pregnancy cravings, she buys clothes for the twins, she is even planning to take paid time off from work for when the babies are here. Deleted. This is really frightening. Like those stories of people taking babies from a pregnant woman. You need to get her help ASAP. Was she all of a sudden 19 weeks, or has this been going on a while? What spurred her into thinking she was initially pregnant? Have you seen her have her period at this time so you can point out the obvious? OOP, she claimed she was pregnant about a few weeks ago. But as of Friday she says she entered her 19th week. I really don't know what brought her to think that so-called pizza. Oh dude. She's going through something very, very serious. You need to contact a therapist. Like, turn off Reddit right now and contact one. She's having delusional thoughts. Her preoccupation with pregnancy and her sadness have overcome her. This is way beyond Reddit's pay grade. Good luck. OOP. I have tried talking her into therapy and she shuts down 100% and accuses me of gaslighting her panda jinx. This sounds like it could be a pseudo-pregnancy. I learned about this in our OBGYN basic science portion of med school. Never saw it mentioned again outside our textbook, but it's a very real psychological phenomena. It can happen in animals too. Usually an ultrasound to show that the uterus is empty is curative. Devastating but curative. She needs help from an OBGYN and a psychiatrist. You're probably going to need to start with an OBGYN because she'll be in denial about it being a psych issue but would go to an OBGYN for her pregnancy. Give the OBGYN a heads up before the appointment about what you're dealing with and they can help with a plan to put a psych consult in motion. Involuntary if need be, but again, the ultrasound could shake her back. You should know that she'll mourn the loss, likely as if it was a real loss of twins. Good luck OP. Update. 7 days later. I called up our primary doctor and told him about the problem. He seemed very concerned and wanted us to come see him the next morning. He said it was important to be gentle but not feed into her delusions. I sat her down and we talked. All she wanted to talk about is when I would get the nursery started and that we were on a time crunch, and how she has found a perfect color for the room, how she wants me to be more involved in her pregnancy. I tried to be very calm, but I was very perturbed by seeing her that way. I asked her to go to the doctor with me tomorrow. She said yes, that she wanted to check on the babies either way. Now I took some advice and words you gave me about being calm and asking a bit why she thinks she is pregnant without calling her delusional. So I did. She kept changing subjects or saying that a mother just feels it. You wouldn't know how it is. Then I said that I loved her really much, that I would never think of leaving her, but we needed to go to the doctor to confirm her gut feeling. She got very agitated and was crying, telling me that if I wanted to leave her I should simply leave, but I shouldn't call her a liar. Somehow I managed to calm her down enough for her to go to sleep. After she did, I went on her computer. I never snoop on her. But I remembered a commenter pointing out forums about cryptic pregnancy, and so I went for the look. Oh boy. She was in 2 Facebook groups. One was a normal mommy Facebook group and the other was a group about women that believed they were pregnant. In the normal group she would post updates about her symptoms and pictures of her belly, and her story about how she was almost not able to have children, but that's to the grace of God that kissed her tummy, the gift of life was given to her. And how she was compensated for all this years of suffering with twins. In the other group the women were quite literally, and excuse me here, fucking insane. They were feeding into each other's delusions. A woman said that she was almost 2 years pregnant and how sometimes it just takes longer. My wife would post there complaining about doctors that do not take her seriously and about me. So many women were making her fear that I would leave. Saying things like men cannot stick to a woman. Many recounted their stories about how their marriages broke down because their spouses could not handle the pregnancy. I was really fucking scared. I researched phantom pregnancies and I read somewhere that that could also be a sign of schizophrenia. So to say the least, I could not sleep. I was and am still very afraid of losing her. She woke up and I tried to act like nothing was wrong. We were going to the doctor. And it was as if nothing had happened yesterday. She was convinced that we were going to a pregnancy checkup. Things got really bad when we began talking to the doctor. He was really tactful when talking to my wife. He tried to explain to her that it was medically impossible that she was pregnant. We tried to show her tests, the ultrasound we did the day before, but nothing. She got more agitated and began to cry and scream at me for making her look like a crazy person. She began bouncing back and forth and holding her head with both hands. We could not calm her and she went into a full-on panic attack. She could not breathe. The doctor laid her down and tried giving her some medicine for her to relax, but it did not help as he didn't have the necessary tools to treat a panic attack that was that bad. She had to go to the hospital where they took care of her. Did an EKG to exclude that she was suffering a heart attack. At that point I really had no other option than to inquire about involuntary commit. So I could not do it myself. I needed my doctor's statement that she was a danger to herself and others, and he had to initiate the process of an involuntary examination of 72 hours. After that, we will have to submit a written statement to the court to determine whether or not she can stay there against her will. So far I have submitted all her posts in both Facebook groups as well as the test we did with timestamps when possible. My wife is 2 days in the 3 days examination and I have no contact to her. When I last her she was furious with me. She said I was taking away her freedom. I feel horrible, dirty and useless. She is so mad at me. I feel like I'm abandoning her and don't know how she will ever forgive me this. I love her with all my heart. I am afraid of what will happen if the courts decide that I can't commit her. How our life will be affected. I feel like I failed to protect her. At this point I am just rambling. Sorry for the long post, I guess I just need to vent because I have no one else to really turn to that just wants to listen. I feel judged by everyone and pitied. I just hate it. Sorry for spelling mistakes, edit. I will not fucking leave my wife, you unempathetic dickheads. When I gave my vows I meant through illness and bad times. I am not only on the ride for the good times. If you truly love someone you will do whatever it takes to see them healthy again. Would you leave your spouse if they went through a severe physical illness? I am here to stay. I will not divorce her. She is not a fucking psycho, she is sick. I hope no one of your loved ones ever has to go through this because their support net will consist of cowardly dickheads. Sorry for the rant. But if you want to say something in line divorce that nut, don't even bother. I understand people that make the choice to leave if the situation when it begins to mess with their mental health, and I respect that, but I won't do that. Edit 2, my wife didn't have a heart attack. She was examined because panic attacks register with similar symptoms as heart attacks. I don't exactly know what our doctor gave her as I was so distraught, but I was not a sedative. I think it was something along the lines of Valium or Baldrian. Over-the-counter stuff mostly. She has a family. She is estranged from most of them. Her sister is now at our place to help. Also refrain from such stupid comments like, I'll bet she will leave, bro. She is crazy, how did you marry her? Because they are not helpful at all. Especially the bets that are going on that my wife will leave me once she gets better. Just seems like you want me to divorce. Get a life. Comments, deleted. I used to work in the involuntary commitment system. Everyone is upset with their loved ones when they get committed. Everyone. And it's a normal thing for family members and partners to feel a ton of guilt. But your wife needs help. You took the steps to get her that help even though it was scary. You will not regret this. Hoping 1357911 I had to involuntarily commit my husband. He has PTSD and I got a phone call at work 40 minutes away in a different county saying that he loved me and that I shouldn't feel bad. I had to call 911 bawling my eyes out knowing he was having a bad week and then call the emergency line for the county he was in. They connect you to the nearest one. When the police broke the door down he was in the bathroom. He hid the razor before he came out. He was so mad at me. He hated me. He wanted a divorce. He never wanted to see me again. And to be honest I was pretty angry too, not because of his mental illness but because I felt so helpless. I want to say after a week of the adjusted meds. He called apologizing. He told me how thankful he was that I had called. He was thankful that I didn't budge on him being committed. He was thankful that he had someone who knew him well enough to know that he wasn't manipulating me. He had been pushing me away, which is a sign or being suicidal, and we had been fighting a lot because of it. You did the right thing, OP. You definitely have done the right thing for her well-being no matter how angry she is now. She'll see it one day. Queen Moogle, dude, what you did is so incredibly fucking hard. But it was the right decision. You tried everything. Doctors, kindness, everything. This is not a normal don't snoop in your partner's stuff circumstance. Your wife is having an actual legitimate health crisis. She cannot act in her own best interest right now, but god damn it you can, and you did. It may take a long ass time for both of you to see it completely, but she needed immediate and intensive psychiatric treatment. Everything matcha. Yup, we are so proud of you, OP, for doing something so hard for your wife. She may resent you now, but when she gets better she'll understand. She cannot comprehend that what you are doing is saving her. We are all rooting for you and your wife's recovery, OP. Hang in there. Update, 8 months later. Hi guys, it's me again. We have a lot of time on our hands, so I thought, why not update the community that helped me? Even if it was just to let me know that I could vent. I don't even know how much time has passed, but I am very happy to say that things are working out. I have my wife's permission to share this with you all, and she is even telling me to greet you. After being in the 72-hour stay, it was determined that she had to stay there. My wife was pissed for the first few weeks. It was a devastating time. But time and therapy heals all wounds. Slowly I was allowed to come visit. And every day I went, I saw a bit more of the person I loved. There were setbacks along the way, and I had to watch a lot what I said and did. For example, the first few weeks she wouldn't tolerate touch or something like that. Our trust had to be regained slowly. From both parts. We put so much work in. And even now that she is back home, and has been for a while, we sometimes have bad days where it is difficult for my wife to get out of bed, or where I am suspicious of her getting back into that state. But at the end of the day, I'm happy. We go to counseling together, and we are on individual therapy as well. Especially because due to the stress I developed a form of anxiety. But every day it's a bit better. I have discovered new sides of my wife, like the new hobby that she has of making resin jewelry and decorations. Even our quarantine time has been quite peaceful. We still have remote therapy and everything. Things are not normal yet. And adoption is not back on the table as of now. We have given yourself at least a year of therapy before we think about parenting and raising a child. One thing is for certain. I am still in love with my wife, and I still love her so much. Our relationship might not be better than ever, but it sure as hell is stronger than ever. Also, she has done a lot of self-reflection and of course has thanked me for how I handled things. She is lovely. We are happy. Comments, would it? Did you ever get a definitive cause from the doctors? This seems so surreal, I've never heard of it before. OOP, not a definitive cause, but the trigger at least. 7 Orange Files. This is wonderful news. I remember your story. It was terrifying. Full marks for supporting her. Sick and tired, good on you for helping your wife get the help she needs. That was a terrible experience, but you really stepped up. Even if things aren't perfect, you've both come a long way. I'm so happy for you. Minok 33. Good to hear things are looking up and you won't be considering adopting in the near future. Matter of fact, it might be a good time to use some of those therapy sessions to start preparing yourselves for the likely possibility that you won't ever be able to adopt. Agencies have to say that an applicant's mental history isn't an automatic deal killer, but in reality it often is. They simply can't risk adopting out children to people suffering from such extreme mental illness that involuntary stays were required. It's all but a guarantee that they'd never allow children to be placed under your wife's care. Your mental health history is part of the background check, and red flags like involuntary holds will often exclude you from adopting. They'll still have you go through the whole process and pretend like you have a chance, but reality is you probably won't be eligible. They just can't risk putting children in the care of people with a history of mental illnesses.